Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and enjoy this fanfic part 3. Now let's start the fanfic. Sakura was seething. She had been removed from Team 7 and taken away from her precious Sasuke, all because of Naruto's jealousy that she wouldn't date him. Now she had to wait for the new academy curriculum to be implemented before she could try again and hope that they forced Naruto and Sasuke to wait for her before taking the Chunin exams. She was preparing to go out and meet with a Chunin she'd hired through her savings to train her to get the kind of body that would make Sasuke drool when her mother opened her door. "Hi mom, what's up?" "Sakura, I need you to pack your bags. You'll be going away for a while," her mother said in a almost monotone-like voice. "Going away? Where am I going?" "You'll be going with me." A hooded figure smiled as he walked into the room. "Mother, what's going on?" Sakura asked frantically. "You failed in getting Sasuke, so I've decided to sell you to this man. I'll go to the orphanage and adopt a new daughter from there and start the process over. Sasuke is preoccupied with his training right now, so I'll have plenty of time to mold a suitable daughter before he begins looking for wives for the CRA." Sakura was about to scream in protest when she was struck in the back of the neck by the hooded figure. The man lifted her under his arm and tossed a roll of bills to Mebuki. "Don't spend it all in one place." "Don't worry, I won't." Mebuki smirked as the man disappeared with her daughter in tow. She'd have liked to get a bit more than 10,000 ryo for her, but the girl hadn't developed any kind of figure and lacked anything more than the skills of a basic academy student. Oh well, the little brat is someone else's problem now. As much as I loathe the idea, I may want to get on the demon's good side. Maybe even seduce him and get myself an heir who can get me access to the fortunes of the Uzumaki and the Namikaze clans. Mebuki thought as she began plotting ways to seduce the boy. Back to the Chunin exams. The first few matches of the preliminary round were, in a word, boring. Most of the matchups were fairly one-sided, though it did show how even a skilled shinobi could be easily beaten if they came up against someone of equal skill who just so happened to be opposite type. Such as with Yori and Sasuke. With Orochimaru unable to mark him, Sasuke had access to his full arsenal of ranged attacks, which completely dominated Yori's close-range techniques. The same was said about Choji, a taijutsu specialist who was paired against Dosu, who utilized sound waves at close range. Iri versus Ino. Ino smirked. "Well, the flunky shouldn't be a issue," she said as she headed for the stairs. Iri clenched her fist. While the dead last normally got a free pass by being paired with the top student, the lower students were the ones on the chopping block for team placements. That's why she and Amy were both placed on the reserve list due to uneven teams. "Now Iri-chan, you know that I'm the last person to advocate for violence," Naruto said. "Bullshit. Liar," came the sarcastic coughs of Sasuke and Amy. Naruto sent half-hearted glares at his two friends. "That being said, give that whiny brat the spanking she deserves." He smiled. Iri smiled and kissed his cheek before jumping over the railing. "You can go ahead and give up now and save yourself the embarrassment. I'm sure Naruto had to carry you this far into the exams." Iri smirked. "Start the match." Hayate swung his arm down and moved to watch from atop the statue with the Hokage. "My money is on the Yamanaka girl," one of the nearby Jonin watching said. Another shook his head. "That girl was trained by Yugao. I wouldn't count her out right away." Iri smiled as Ino ran at her in the basic academy stance. She knew the Yamanaka didn't specialize in taijutsu, often leaving that portion of the battle to their Akamaiki teammates, but she had at least thought the girl would have learned some kind of new form by this point. Iri merely sidestepped the widely telegraphed punch before bringing the palm of her hand down on Ino's. The blonde girl let out a loud yelp before grabbing her. "What the hell?" "Well, Naruto-kun said, and I quote, 'Give that whiny brat the spanking she deserves,' so I did." The surrounding genin and jonin all looked at the young blonde with accusatory gazes. "I was speaking figuratively. No, I think they deserve a show," she said, pondering for a moment before turning to Ino with a sickly sweet smile. "And you, my dear, do deserve a spanking." She deactivated her training seals and disappeared from view. The Jonin in the area were astonished. To the genin it looked as if she had simply vanished, but to their trained eyes she was simply moving at high Chunin to low Jonin speeds. Ino looked around worriedly before she felt a slight breeze behind her. She turned her head just in time to see Irie grab her purple lace panties and hoist them over her head. The blonde girl let out a loud scream followed by a slight moan. Ooh, seems our dear Ino-chan likes it rough. Ino's cheeks gained a deep red tint to them before she felt another strike against her and let out a loud cry. Now submit to your new mistress. Quote, I submit. I submit. Just leave my alone. Winner Irie. Hayate called as Irie pulled Ino along to the observation area and sat in a stool removing her sandals. She placed a modified paralysis seal meant for interrogations on Ino that left her unable to move from the neck down and shoved her sweaty soles in her face. And your mistress expects them spotless by the end of the matches. Considering that there are only 2 matches left, so you better get to licking. She smirked. Asuma looked as if he wanted to intervene but was stopped by Yugao, who shook her head. She made her bed, now she has to lie in it. Naruto versus Kiba. Kiba grinned. It's payback time, Naruto. I've been training to get you back for that first spar. He said, stealing glances at the erotic scene going on between Irie and Ino. Now Kiba, you wouldn't happen to be having perverted thoughts about my dear sweet Irie-chan, would you? He smiled, cracking his knuckles as a dark aura formed around him. And now Naruto J, just be cool. Don't do anything hasty. Kiba said, waving his hands as Akamaru wisely dismounted his head and moved to let his master suffer the consequences of his own actions. Hayate followed Akamaru's lead and started the match before removing himself from the ring. Kiba was about to say more in his defense before Naruto appeared in front of him and leapt into the air, wrapping his arms around Kiba's neck before falling and slamming Kiba's face into the floor, cracking the floor and knocking Kiba out. Out of nowhere, Amy yelled from the observation post. Vintage Naruto. Irie called out, wiggling her toes in front of Ino's nose. Man, Naruto-kun ended that in an instance. You better hope that Amy-chan draws her match out a bit longer. It doesn't even feel like you're halfway done. If they're not spotless by the time we wrap up, I'll be taking you home for punishment. Ino got a slightly fearful look in her eyes as she began licking faster. Though Irie smirked as she saw the hints of arousal in her eyes. Last match, Amy of Konoha versus Samui of Kumo. Naruto watched the match with interest. Though Naruto had to admit he was captivated by the beauty of the short-haired blonde. As soon as the match began, Amy launched a fireball at the woman only for her to leap over it and pull out a ninjutsu. So you wanna play this close range? Amy smirked, pulling out her tanto. 2 can play at that game. Bad move. Naruto sighed as he leaned over watching the match. Why's that, Dobi? Don't you have faith in Amy-chan? Sasuke asked as he watched the 2 trade blows. I do, however you have to understand. Everyone in Kumo uses a sword. Outside of specialists like Yugao-chan and Hayate, only Anbu really use swords in this village. Amy-chan is good, but she's only been training with a sword for about a month. While I'm sure Kumo drills their genin in Kenjutsu as early as the academy. Just like we do in Shurikenjutsu and Taijutsu. Sasuke nodded, understanding Naruto's logic. Though that didn't stop him from being immensely proud of his girlfriend and all that she had accomplished since joining Naruto's team. Samui parried a strike to her shoulder and placed her sword to Ami's neck. Amy sighed and raised her hands in defeat. I give. Hayate called the match and called the winners to the front. First match, Naruto versus Samui. Second match, Neji versus Omoi. Third match, Karui versus Irie. Fourth match, Tamari versus Shikamaru. Fifth match, Shino versus Kankuro. Sixth match, Gaara vs Sasuke. Report to the stadium in 1 month's time. As the genin were being escorted from the forest, Samui turned to Naruto. I hope you've trained with that sword. It's not often one gets the chance to face one of the 7 swords, and I'd like to get the opportunity to enjoy the battle. Quote, don't worry, Samui-chan. I'll be sure to take it nice and slow so that you can savor the experience. He said with a seductive smile. Samui looked away with a slight blush. See that you do. So what's the plan for the month? Irie asked as she sat next to Naruto and across from Yugao and Amy at the barbecue restaurant. For now I'd like to focus on your training, though I wouldn't feel right leaving Naruto-kun to his own devices. Yugao said in slight frustration. Don't worry Yugao-chan. I don't really plan on starting many new projects during the month. I more so plan to refine my current skills to show off my best abilities at the finals. I've already made arrangements for Fu-chan and I to spar sporadically throughout the month to test my progress. Yugao smiled at Naruto's maturity. He understood that he had access to a vast well of resources that even some jonin didn't, while Irie was completely reliant on having her sensei with her. That sounds like a fine idea, Naruto-kun. After departing from the group, Irie returned to her home where she had Ino waiting for her. Ino blushed as she shifted uncomfortably. Irie had ordered her to wait in her new apartment wearing a see-through lace bra, matching thong, purple thigh highs and a matching garter belt. Why am I dressed like this? It's embarrassing, she whimpered. Because it looks adorable on you. Irie smiled as she snapped a deep purple leather collar around her neck with a heart-shaped lock. Now kneel down. Ino bit her lip but moved to her knees, keeping her legs closed. Irie grabbed a belt from the dresser and used it to smack her. Bad pet. Good girls kneel with their legs spread open. Ino jumped but spread her legs apart, revealing a slight dark patch on the nearly see-through fabric. My, I believe my sweet Ino-chan is getting aroused from being dominated. Ino blushed and tried to look away. I'm not, it's just hot in here. Irie grinned and ran her fingers over the fabric. She then ran her fingers over her tongue. That's much too sweet to be sweat, dear Ino-chan. You should be honest with yourself. It does feel good, ma'am. That's a good girl, but you know you didn't get your mistress's feet completely clean during the prelims, so you'll have to be punished. Ino whimpered as she bit her lower lip, looking up at her with her big green eyes. Please, mistress, the matches ended so quickly that I didn't have time to properly worship your beautiful souls. Irie let out a small giggle, running her hand over her cheek. Trying to flatter me. No, ma'am. I think every part of you is beautiful. Ino admitted with a hint of embarrassment. Irie cupped her cheek and planted her lips against Ino's gently. That's so sweet, but you're still being punished. Now bend over and spread your. Ino gulped but did as she said, not wanting to upset the woman standing before her. Irie smirked and pulled her panties aside, slipping two fingers which she'd covered in a cold lube into the girl's tight hole. Ino let out a cry as her virgin was pierced. She felt a weird sensation as if something was trying to wiggle inside of her as Irie moved her fingers back and forth. My, what a tight you have, Ino-chan. I don't even think there's room for that stick I thought you stuck up there. Quote. Ino sighed in a mix of relief and disappointment as she felt Irie's fingers leave her. Don't worry though. We have ways of making sure nothing accidentally slips in there. The brunette grinned. Ino was about to ask what she meant when she felt something cold and metal press against her hole. She turned just in time to see a large metal plug being pushed into her. She let out a small moan as she felt it stretch her hole. Irie smiled and held up a mirror behind her so that she could see the small green jewel on the end shaped like a rose. What do you think? It's beautiful. She blushed. Good, because you'll be wearing it every day until I say otherwise, and don't think I won't be doing surprise inspections whenever I feel like. She said, running her fingers over the blonde's wet slit. Ino let out a small moan as her legs quivered slightly. But what if we're in public? Irie leaned forward and whispered huskily. You'll just have to be extra careful, unless you want people to see your creamy white. She emphasized her point by slapping the girl on the and biting her ear. Ino shivered, unconsciously pushing herself closer to the girl, allowing her to nibble on her ear. Irie responded by standing and stripping. She climbed onto the bed, resting her back against the headboard. She bent her knees slightly, exposing her glistening slit to the other girl. I believe you've earned a little snack, Ino-chan. Ino blushed and moved forward, licking the other girls. On over. You should be ashamed of yourself, you perverts. So Irie-chan, are you excited to be in the finals? Ino asked as she cuddled up to the brunette in bed. The two had decided to sleep together as Irie had lost track of time during their love-making. Yeah, and while I'm confident I'll put on a good show and possibly get promoted to Chunin. But I know that if I come up against Naruto-kun I'm dead meat. You sound kind of like me when I was stuck on Sasuke-kun. Ino giggled. There's a difference. You and Sakura blindly followed Sasuke-kun without getting to know him. I've seen Naruto-kun in training and I've seen him in combat. The skills he has in his arsenal honestly scare the hell out of me. Kami, they even scare Yugao-chan sometimes. He uses dozens of shadow clones to train in the morning before the rest of us even show up for our team meetings. Wait, really? Yes, even when we're done with training he goes off to do something else to better himself. I don't remember the last time I actually saw him take a break. He's really that determined? Ino asked, looking up from her lover's chest. Indeed, he says he has a lot to do before he can take it easy. Though he does plan to slow down a bit once he reaches Chunin. Once he has the rank, he'll be able to take on B-rank missions solo. So he'll be able to take less missions for the same pay. He'll also be able to focus more on his domestic projects. While the girls were discussing a certain blonde. Elsewhere in the elemental nations a lone house stood inside of a small clearing. Deep beneath it lay a dungeon that was arguably larger than the house above it. Sakura sat bound in chains. Because her mother had removed her name from the roster for the academy and had informed the council that she had left to train as a merchant, no one was looking for her. My Sakura-chan, it appears that not only has your old team entered the Chunin exams, but they've also managed to make it the finals without you. Quote. Sakura looked up from her spot kneeling on the floor. Her clothes were nowhere in sight, revealing a mass of scars covering her torso and thighs from where the man had whipped her during her frequent outburst when he had first brought her here. On her stomach was a particularly nasty scar where he had used a combination of surgery and fuinjutsu to replace her womb with that of a Uchiha woman so that any children she bore would be of Uchiha blood and obtain the Sharingan. She still didn't know the man's identity. He constantly wore his hood when around her and used either fuinjutsu or genjutsu to conceal his identity. Please sir, let me go. I promise I won't tell anyone about you or this place. The man chuckled behind his hood. Tell me something, Sakura-chan. Did you wish to marry Sasuke to gain the prestige of his clan? Sakura looked down but nodded. The Harunos are a clan that pride ourselves on status above all else. Our branch of the family is only at the top because of my mother's seat on the council, but with my uncle vying for a position on the new Kiri council, my mother is adamant that I help us increase our prestige. I guess that's not an issue anymore. Quote. What if I could help you dethrone your mother as the head of the family and make her your vassal? Sakura's head perked up. How would you be able to accomplish that? The man removed his hood to reveal the face of the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze, though in his right eye he held a mature Sharingan. By taking back my village. Yondaime. But I thought you died the night of the Kyuubi attack. Merely a fool, I had copy my hand signs for the Reaper death seal and then used a advanced seal to make look like me when they burned the body. My plan was to come back from the dead once my son had been turned into a proper weapon and save him. But thanks to that fool Hokage as well as that idiot Danzo and his route, my plan for dominating the other nations has been put on hold. So why did you take me? She whimpered out. Because I'm going to have that Uchiha boyed upon my return, and I will have you breed a new clan of Sharingan users for me as my wife. I will also be leashing that unruly brat of mine and retaking the resources of the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan. Sakura's eyes widened. Inside her a war waged. The love her mother had fostered inside of her for Sasuke was fighting back her Haruno desire for status. To be the wife of the Hokage as well as to have access to the Uzumaki and Namikaze estates. Possibly even the Uchiha estate due to the fact that she'd be the mother of a new Uchiha clan. I don't owe Sasuke anything anyway. He basically strung me along while he was secretly dating that skank Amy the whole time. I do have one request though, if it's not too much trouble. Minato smiled slightly. Oh, and what would that be? I'd like you to make Amy my slave. I want to make her pay for stealing Sasuke from me. Minato grinned. The girl would make a much better wife than that foolish Uzumaki girl he had to play the hero for. I think that's a splendid idea, my dear Sakura-chan. Though I am interested in knowing what kind of duties you'd have her perform. I haven't given it much thought. With her being on Naruto's team and Sasuke, I never thought I'd get close enough. Though I'd start by tarnishing that silver tongue she used to win Sasuke over by using it as my new toilet paper and having her use it to clean the toilets. Minato grinned. The girl was truly vicious and petty. The perfect combination to ensure his future children grew up with the proper level of ambition. I think that's a splendid start. While the two conspired, Naruto was dealing with his own Haruno. He'd been training in the Forest of Death to avoid any of the other teams spying on him. On his stroll back to his home, he'd run into Mebuki, who had asked him to join her for tea at her home in order to form a professional relationship. While he had no true love for the civilian council, he understood that he needed to play nice and that it would benefit him to have the head of the civilian council on his side in some matters. So now he was sitting in her living room as the woman had excused herself to the bathroom for a moment. He was sitting and trying to think of an excuse if he needed to end the meeting early. That was when he heard the door to the bathroom. He looked up, ending his contemplation only to be shocked by the dress she now wore. It looked to be a white satin dress that clung to her, showing off a hourglass-like figure. The way the fabric clung to her D-cup chest, it was clear that she was no longer wearing a bra. The fact that he could see so much of her wide hips from the sides also told him that he'd have a full view of her backside if she turned around. I'm sorry for the wait, Naruto-kun. I wanted to change into something more comfortable for our discussions, she said with a disarming smile. Naruto returned a polite smile as he watched her sit down. What game are you playing, woman? He thought to himself as he watched her sit on the couch opposite him and cross her long-toned legs, dangling her foot in front of him. The small bell on her anklet drawing his attention to her legs for a moment. He'd have to thank Tenten again for her lessons in countering seduction techniques. The old him would have been a stuttering mess and falling all over himself if a woman this admittedly beautiful was showing him this much interest. Well, you certainly do look comfortable, ma'am. Oh, don't be so formal, Naruto-kun. Please, call me Mebuki or Mebuki-chan. Thank you, Mebuki. She was slightly annoyed that he hadn't taken her up on the chan suffix, but she was pleased to make progress. I must say, Mebuki, it is a bit of a shock to see you in such casual attire. Your figure is even more beautiful than I imagined, he said, hoping to keep the mood light as they talked. Mebuki smiled at him, uncrossing and recrossing her legs suggestively. My Naruto-kun, are you admitting to fantasizing about me? Naruto smirked and clasped his hands in his lap, sitting up straight with a regal posture. Now, Mebuki, you and I both know that it's a futile effort to get secrets out of a shinobi. Mebuki giggled slightly, placing her fingers to her lips. This boy is much more delightful than I thought he would be. I figured this would be a chore, but it's actually enjoyable to be flirted with and treated like a lady. Can't blame a girl for trying. Especially when she has a handsome young man running his eyes over her. She teased. Well, I'd consider it a great rudeness to ignore you when you went through all the effort to put on this show. After all, you even went through the trouble of getting both your fingernails and your toenails painted my favorite shade of burnt orange. He teased back. Well, I guess I should have expected such a fine shinobi to be so astute. I must admit, I did remember hearing that you'd originally planned to ask for your headband to be orange before you received the one you have now. Naruto smiled and leaned forward, bringing his hands to his face as his gaze immediately turned sharp in a way that sent a bolt of electricity down Mebuki's spine. Now that we've established my skills of observation, you can tell me why you really called me here. Mebuki smiled slightly. I figured you'd see through me eventually. I just didn't think it'd be this soon. I was hoping to seduce you and partake in the luxurious lifestyle you have. Though I'm actually having quite a bit more fun with this game of cat and mouse we've been playing than I thought I was going to. You're trying to seduce me, Naruto said with a smirk. I never would have guessed with you being dressed like one of the girls in the red light district. Mebuki laughed lightly, causing her mature S to bounce slightly. This only sought to excite her more as her sensitive nipples rubbed against the soft fabric. So Naruto-kun, now that you know my scheme, what will you do now? Naruto stood up and walked over. As he did, Mebuki now saw just how much he towered over her. Even though she was on the tall side for women of the area, being roughly 5 feet 7 inches, he stood at roughly 5 foot 10 and had far more muscle mass than the first time she'd seen him after his graduation. He leaned forward and placed his fingers under her chin. Mebuki shivered in response. She wanted to look away, but something about the cold gaze he was giving her entranced her to continue looking into his eyes. From this moment forward, you belong to me. No more scheming behind my back. I will take care of you, but make no mistake. You are not my wife, you are not my lover. You are my property. Your body, your mind, your very soul all belong to me. You will do as ordered without question. If I order you to, you will take up a sword and move to the front lines of battle. If I order you to strip and walk on a leash as a dog through the village, you will bark happily when you see your leash. And if I order you to sell yourself to fund my goals, you will every in the elemental nations. Mebuki could feel her heart racing. She could feel her Haruno blood telling her to make this brat bend to her will, but then she could hear a louder voice screaming at her to submit or face his wrath. I understand, my master. Naruto smirked and stepped back. Good girl. Now stand up and strip for me. I want to get a good look at you. Mebuki walked to the center of the room and unlatched the back of her dress, allowing it to pool around her feet. She stood perfectly still as Naruto ran his eyes over her figure. Her pale pink nipples stood perfectly erect while her lower region tingled just below her pubic area, which she'd shaved into a diamond pattern. Naruto circled around her like a predator getting ready to pounce, inspecting her larger backside before slapping his palm against it, giving it a squeeze. Quite impressive. Though I guess one who doesn't have to work does have plenty of time to take work on her appearance. I take great pride in my physical fitness, master, she said, though her pink cheeks betrayed her confident words. While you can't be trained in ninjutsu or genjutsu, you will be putting in a request for self-defense lessons from one of the local chunin. If anything should happen, I will not you be standing by uselessly while everyone else does the fighting. Yes, my master. Naruto reached around her and placed a hand on her, squeezing it. I will be winning the tournament in a month's time. I expect you to be there, cheering the loudest for me as I defeat each opponent I come across. He emphasized his point by pinching her nipple. I also expect you to be dressed in an attractive form of cheering attire. Mebuki looked back at him and smiled. You wouldn't happen to have one of your old jumpsuits I could have? I have a splendid idea for an outfit that would be perfect to cheer you on, master. She found herself growing more comfortable to calling him master. Come by my apartment tomorrow and I will have one of them ready for you, he said as he bit her neck and poured a bit of chakra into it, leaving a mark that looked like a black fox with mini headhunter's sword in its mouth. Mebuki let out a moan as she felt her knees shake and almost give out from underneath her. Thank you, master, she panted out. Naruto smiled and released her. Now if you'll excuse me, I have to go and meet with Anko-chan about a few things before dinner. Also, before you come to my apartment tomorrow, I want you to get a tattoo of the Uzumaki spiral on your lower back just above your, he said, placing a hand just above her pubic mound, causing a seal to appear just below her belly button. What's that seal for? Mebuki asked curiously. For my own entertainment. Naruto smirked and held up 2 fingers, focusing on the seal. Mebuki cried out as she felt a surge of pleasure shoot through her. She dropped to her knees, panting lightly while a puddle formed between her knees. You see, my dear, with this seal I can send a bolt of pleasure through your body at any time I choose and from anywhere I choose. Mebuki blushed as she tried to stand only for another wave of pleasure to rock her body. She cried out as she squirted on the floor. She fell forward. Her cheek pressed against the floor while her stood high in the air. Naruto smirked and slipped a finger into her, wiggling it slightly. I think I want you to also get a Uzumaki butt plug to go with your new tattoo. Why yes master. She whimpered out, wiggling her slightly. Naruto smirked and pulled his fingers out, heading to the door. Stopping, he looked back at her. If I like your cheer routine, I'll give you a nice surprise after my victory. Yes master. I look forward to it, she said as she got back to her knees. Naruto smiled as he walked into his apartment and found Anko waiting for him. I see you've made yourself at home. Well, you were taking forever to get home. She smiled, crossing her legs as she sat on his couch. And given the smell that's covering you, you were having fun. Yeah, that's my bad. Mebuki stopped me and wanted to chat. And you her? She raised an eyebrow. No, just second base. I'm gonna let her stir a bit and get worked up until she can't take it anymore. Oh wow, you're a lot more intriguing than I suspected. But on to business. You said you found a way to take off the seal. Naruto smiled, nodding. Yes, I've had the clones set up an area in the other room. You can go in there, I just need you to remove your top and lay on the matrix in the middle. Legs together and arms out. You can call for me when you're ready. Anko smirked. Such a gentleman. Don't ruin the persona by peeking. Naruto chuckled. Don't worry, I won't. With a few glaring expectations, I prefer to take a woman on a few dates before getting them, he said, waving her towards the other room. It took several hours and Anko had been so exhausted she had passed out as soon as the procedure was finished. So Naruto wrapped her in a towel and placed her on his bed to take a nap. Anko awoke a couple of hours late and stretched, feeling her back pop as she stood up from the bed. Man, I gotta ask him where he gets his mattresses, she said as she put on her top and walked into the living room. They're custom jobs, Naruto said as he brought out a pair of plates containing some rather thick steaks. Anko tilted her head in confusion. The mattresses, they're custom. Well, as a new vassal of the Uzumaki clan, it'd be incredibly generous of my clan head to get me one of those mattresses for me, she said, giving him a puppy dog expression while pushing her cleavage forward by clasping her hands in front of her waist. Naruto smiled and poked her forehead. First of all, I invented that move. Second, remind me to give Tenten a bonus for those anti-seduction lessons. Anko pouted, sticking her lower lip out. Now I know who I need to get mad at for ruining my chance at a new mattress. I've been sleeping on that crappy one for 6 years. How does a Jonin not afford a new mattress? Well, I work in T&I, so I get a base salary. On top of that, due to the current semi-peaceful state of things, there aren't a lot of high-ranking missions that need me to be pulled out of the T&I department. Which means most of my money goes to rent and the like. How long is your lease? My whole landlord rents me month to month. I'd move out, but he's the only one who'd rent to me. Even if he does charge me the snake whore tax. Naruto's face hardened. Give your notice. You'll move out and move into the Uzumaki compound after the finals. We'll start moving your things in the week before the tournament. You can leave the mattress. I'll have a new one put in for you. Hell, piss on it and move in a week before your lease ends so it stinks the place up for him. Anko smiled at him. I thought my seductions techniques didn't work on you. Naruto smiled and rubbed her head affectionately. They don't. However, you are part of my clan now. That makes you my family and I care about you. Which means that I'm going to do my best to take care of you. Anko smiled and pulled him into a hug. You don't know how good it feels to have someone say that to me. Now let's eat before those steaks get cold. Naruto smiled as he pulled her chair out for her. Oh, don't worry about that. I use fuinjutsu on the plates that keeps the food at the right temperature. This way your food doesn't get cold if you get lost in conversation. Quote. Anko sat and began digging into the meal. You sure you don't need another wife or a slave? 'Cause with meals and treatment I'm down for either of those options. Naruto chuckled as he took a bite. How about we set up a date for after the finals? That sounds like a good idea. I'll be cheering for you to win the whole thing. Oh, don't worry, Anko-chan. I'm going to start our clan's restoration off right. He smiled. Also, I've always wondered, how does your coat always cover your S? The FCC kid, the FCC. She laughed. No, I actually use chakra to make it stick to myself when I'm walking around and let it free during fights to be a distraction. Nice. He laughed. You know, I was by the compound earlier and it turns out we have a larger hot springs than the Uchiha compound. Anko raised an eyebrow. Really? Yeah, according to my mother's diary, she really liked hot springs. So she built several different pools in the area. A normal one, a salt one to help ease joint pain and increase blood flow, and a silica one to help skin, bone, and nail health. That sounds amazing. What do you say we go try out that salt one after dinner? My shoulders have been so stiff lately, I'd do just about anything for it. Naruto chuckled. Careful, Anko-chan. Anything can cover a wide range of requests. But sure, if you wanna run home and grab a swimsuit, we can go take a soak. Anko smirked. Why bother with a swimsuit? I've got nothing to hide if you don't. Naruto merely smiled and took another bite. Alright, Anko-chan, you're on. Anko stood in front of the springs that contained 3 different pools of varying size. The steam coming off each of them causing her skin to glisten in the moonlight. A wolf-like whistle behind her caught her attention and she turned to see Naruto admiring her hourglass-like figure. I know I was praising those anti-seduction lessons earlier, but that is a lot for one man to resist. Anko chuckled. Not so bad yourself there. Those muscles of yours are really coming in. She smiled. Now which one is the salt bath? Naruto smiled and took her by the hand, leading her into one of the pools. She sighed in relief, sinking down to her shoulders as she felt her joints and muscles instantly relax. Oh Kami, this is amazing. If you want, I can get behind you and help with those aching shoulders. Go ahead, but don't try anything funny or do. I'm too relaxed to stop you. She moaned. Naruto chuckled and got behind her, rubbing her shoulders. I promise to save that for later. Room for one more. A feminine voice called from the side of the pool, sending the 2 shinobi into high alert. They jumped out of the pool and turned to see a petite blonde woman standing there in black sleeveless dress that came down to her mid-thigh in the front and down to her ankles in the back, with a series of black belts that were buckled down her legs and around both of her feet. The dress had a cross-shaped hole cut in the chest and her golden hair flowed down her back with a pair of pigtails that were secured by a pair of black bump horn-like ornaments. Oh, it's a all-natural bath. She giggled, looking at the 2 shinobi. Who are you and how did you get in here? Naruto asked, taking a fighting stance. The woman smiled and sat at the edge of the pool, dipping her feet inside, moving them back and forth. My name is Yami, queen of the demons and ruler of hell. She said as she looked at them, giving them both a view of her fiery red eyes that seemed to dance like hellfire. Naruto could feel the Kyuubi inside of him telling him that this woman was the real deal. He sighed and motioned for Anko to join him back in pool. You're welcome to join us if you'd like, Yami-chan. He said as the 2 of them sank back into the water. Yami smiled and snapped her fingers, causing her clothing to disappear. Thank you, Naruto-kun, she said as she sank into the pool. Wow, this is amazing. She beamed. Thank you, Yami-chan. You're welcome to come by whenever you'd like, but I do have to ask, what brings you here? I just wanted to pop in and meet you in person. You've been causing quite the stir amongst myself and my sisters. Even Jashin-chan is taking an interest in you. She smiled, leaning back against the edge of the pool. So you decided the best way to do that was to pop in on us in the bath? Anko asked. Well, I didn't want to interrupt his training or his work during this month, but I know things are going to be picking up after the finals. Congratulations on making it in, by the way, Naruto-kun. Thank you, Yami-chan. I take it you also decided on this moment so that you had an excuse to come and try out the hot spring. He teased. Yami had the decency to blush and rub the back of her head sheepishly. Busted. She laughed. Uzumaki Springs have always been the best of the elemental nations. They're even better than the ones in the land of hot water. Well, it seems I'll be getting more time to visit with you in the near future. You can say that again. She moaned, sinking to her shoulders. You should be happy you'll be getting to see a goddess's divine body this often. Naruto chuckled as Anko leaned into him. Hey, I think he was enjoy the view just fine before you got here. Yami giggled. Oh, I was enjoying the view when you popped out of the spring as well, Anko-chan. Anko blushed and looked away. Arrow goddess. Now ladies. You're both extremely beautiful, Naruto said as he stood up. However, we shouldn't stay in here too long. Let's get dried off and I'll pour us a nightcap before bed. That sounds like a lovely idea. Yami smiled as she stood up and stretched. Oh wow, I feel 500 years younger. Anko moaned as she stood up. I know what you mean. The bathhouse has nothing on this place. I might have to invite Hana and Kurenai over here. I'm sure Yugao will already be invited once you publicly claim this place. You don't mind having more beautiful women running around, do you? Naruto chuckled as he grabbed towels and robes for the two women. Not at all. If I want some guy time or just some privacy, I'll go bug Sasuke and use one of the Uchiha pools since we're technically cousins now. Anko grinned and wrapped her arms around his back, pressing her generous bust against him. Why do that, Naruto-kun? Afraid that little Naruto would get too excited watching a bunch of beautiful women running around. He merely shook his head and turned around, rubbing her head. That's exactly why. It's hard enough keeping him under control with you streaking about, Anko-chan. Anko blushed and kissed his cheek. Smooth jerk. The three spent the rest of the evening around the living room chatting and drinking before deciding that they'd retire to the master bedroom together for some light cuddling as they fell asleep. The following morning found Naruto wandering towards the forest of death when he bumped into a familiar blonde. Samui-chan, good morning. Good morning, Naruto-san. How are you? Oh, doing well. Just heading back to training ground 44 to get in my morning routine. Samui raised an eyebrow at the statement. You train in training ground 44? Yeah, it's one of the reasons my team managed to finish the second exam so quickly. I like it because it's normally unoccupied, and with the exams going on, it acts as a deterrent to anyone who would seek to spy on me. Samui nodded in agreement. You certainly are an interesting person, Naruto-san. I'd like to learn more about you if you have the time. My dear Samui-chan, you wouldn't happen to be attempting to squeeze information about your first opponent out of me before the finals, would you? He asked, wiggling his eyebrows slightly. Samui huffed lightly and looked off to the side. Possibly. Well, that works for me. The longer I can keep my secrets, the more time I can spend with you. Why don't you meet me at the Hokage Mountain at lunchtime? I'll have one of my clones run home and pack a picnic for us to enjoy. Samui smiled lightly and nodded. That sounds wonderful. Is there a good place to get some new clothing while I'm here? The fabrics we use in Kumo are slightly heavier than the ones you use here, so it's not well suited for this more heated and humid climate. Naruto smiled and walked her to one of the few clothing stores he liked in the area before they bid each other farewell for now. Making his way to the forest of death, Naruto set his clones about practicing with their water release. From what he knew of the others competing in the event, the only was Irie, and he had other methods for taking care of her if it came down to it. His water release would be invaluable for altering the shape of the battlefield as well as weighing down Gaara's sand and dousing Sasuke's fire attacks. It'd also be good for drowning Shino's bugs. While his clones set to work, the real Naruto began his heavy physical training regimen. He'd increased his gravity seals to 70 times Earth's gravity. This is starting to become a pain. Ooh, my sweet Naruto-kun is completely defenseless. A familiar voice called from one of the trees. You know, Yami-chan, it's not nice to spy on a one-man army. Naruto grinned, looking at the blonde girl swinging her feet from the branch she was sitting on. Oh, and what are you gonna do from down there? Doesn't seem like you can move very much. She grinned teasingly. Naruto smirked as a clone appeared behind her before Naruto substituted himself for it, wrapping his arms around her waist as he sat behind her. As I said, Yami-chan, it's unwise to spy on a one-man army. How is it unwise to do so when my punishment is such a lovely embrace? She giggled, leaning back into his chest. Naruto smiled and leaned down, kissing her cheek. Hey Yami-chan, I have a question. What is it, Naruto-kun? She looked at him, tilting her head. Why do you wear those belts around your legs and feet? I noticed that even when we got in the bath last night you didn't take them off. Oh, it's simple really. They act as limiters on my powers. I'm not allowed to intervene directly in the affairs of mortal, and my true power would cause the animals in the area to become demonic beasts. In an emergency I can remove them one pair at a time to release more of my power. Wow, that's amazing. So you're even more incredible than I thought. He beamed, nuzzling into her neck. Yami giggled. Most people wouldn't call me amazing. Especially when they hear that my power can create demonic beasts. She looked a bit saddened as she said the last part. Are you kidding? I bet the creatures you create are amazing. I'd love to see them sometime. He smiled. She smiled back and rubbed his cheek. You are a strange one, all right. But I like you that way, Naruto-kun. If you get strong enough handle atmosphere in hell, I'd be glad to show you the beasts I create out of the souls of sinners. You make your beasts out of the souls of sinners? He asked curiously. Yes, I have the worst of the world tortured until their spirits are broken, and then I forge them into new demonic beasts. They guard hell itself. I look forward to the day I get to meet them. He smiled, nibbling her ear. Maybe I'll pop in on you in the bath as a form of payback. Yami giggled, running her nails along his cheek. My Naruto-kun. I didn't realize you were such a little pervert. You know you don't have to go sneaking around and peeking on me. If you want to see me you need only ask, or simply invite me back to those lovely hot springs of yours. She smiled. How about I take the rest of the morning off before my lunch date? You can enjoy my steam room while I get the honor of sketching you. That sounds lovely, Naruto-kun. After a morning of sketching the Queen of Hell, Naruto found himself on top of the Hokage mountain waiting for Samui to meet him for their lunch date. He was gazing out upon the village when he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and almost felt his heart stop when he saw the blonde Kumo Kunoichi approach him. She was wearing what looked like a teal bikini along with a salmon-colored hoodie that had a white hood and sleeves with a pair of salmon-colored stripes running down the arms. She also wore a pair of sandals that matched the base color of the jacket. I'm sorry if the attire is too casual. It is particularly hot today for my taste, so I decided to go with something I could unzip once we were alone. I don't see any issue with it. You look positively radiant. In fact, it reminds me of the time I spent in the land of waves. Your hair is like the sun shining down, and the bikini reminds me of the waves crashing on the shore with all their power, while the color reminds me of the elegant fish that would jump freely through the ocean on their life's journey. Samui smiled as she approached him. You're quite the poet, Naruto-san. Pure beauty inspires me, Samui-chan. Samui gave him a small smirk as she took a seat on her knees. You've already gotten your date, Naruto-kun. You don't need to sweet-talk me anymore. Naruto merely smiled and took a seat next to her. Maybe not, but it keeps that beautiful smile on your face. Samui chuckled as she unwrapped one of the sandwiches. I noticed you ended your match fairly quickly, Naruto-kun. Did your fellow Konoha Genin's actions really annoy you that much? No. He chuckled, taking another bite. Kiba's always been a bit of an unruly pervert. He simply gave me an excuse to end the match quickly without showing off any of my more advanced skills. I suspect that's why Irie-chan made such a spectacle of Ino-chan. Though I suspect her crush on Ino-chan defiantly played a part in her finally going on the offensive after the past few months. Samui tilted her head. I'm confused. I was under the impression that Irie was your girlfriend. I'm in the village's CRA due to being the last male Uzumaki. Irie-chan has made her feelings about Ino-chan known to me, and Ino-chan's feelings about me as well. We're going to see how the situation evolves before going any further. You are an extremely interesting man indeed, Naruto-kun. Though I do feel as if it's a bit unfair that you got to see more of my abilities than I got to of yours. Naruto chuckled, running his fingers through her hair. Now Samui-chan, this wouldn't happen to be part of your grand plan to get information about my abilities out of me before the finals, would it? Samui blushed as his hand made contact with her fair skin. It might be. Naruto chuckled and laid back on the blanket. I think this date will have to go on a bit longer before I start spilling information like that. After all, the longer I hold on to such information, the more time I get to spend with you. Samui smiled and laid on his chest. You know, you could always tell me and I could simply promise you another date. And why would I trust a shinobi from another village to not simply take the information and leave? He smiled back. Touché Naruto-kun. Though I admit that I do quite enjoy our time together. I would look forward to more dates once the finals are complete. If you manage to impress the Raikage, I might even be able to convince him to make me an emissary to Konoha so that I could visit frequently. Not mentioning the fact that being placed as the primary diplomat to one of the other major countries would be a great addition to your jacket, wouldn't it? Samui smirked slightly. You really are too perceptive sometimes. Naruto chuckled, wrapping an arm around her shoulder. You know, first Gigi and old man Danzo say that, and now you. I'm starting to think I'm just nosy. Samui giggled. Perhaps, but it's a good kind of nosy. I doubt anyone in your life would change you if they could. I know I certainly wouldn't. That evening, while Naruto was spending the day getting to know Samui better over dinner, Irie was in her room after training getting a relaxing massage from Ino. My Ino-chan. I didn't realize someone who specialized in the mental arts would be so good with her hands. The Yamanaka clan specializes in interrogation techniques, meaning that we're taught anatomy from a young age. It also helps to give us a form of cover should we need to infiltrate a town. Well, it's definitely being put to good use now. You wouldn't believe the kind of slave driver Yugao-chan can be. She's hoping to give Naruto-kun some payback for his constant teasing. She giggled lightly. Do you honestly think you can beat him? Probably not. She sighed, sinking deeper into the bed as she relaxed. That boy is something else entirely. Hell, he's already gotten into the bingo book for a missing ninja. I'm just hoping to put on a good enough show to get promoted. If I do, then Yugao-chan can focus on Amy-chan as her apprentice before the next exam. I'm happy one of us has a considerate team. Shoji just sits on the sidelines and eats his chips, while Asuma-sensei just plays shogi with Shikamaru. It's one of the reasons I wasn't very good during the prelims. The only reason my team even made it that far was due to the fact that the first exam was on information gathering, and the second test allowed us to use our clan's specialties in terms of capture and interrogation. Irie moaned as Ino released another knot from her back. I see. I'll ask Yugao-chan to get with Kakashi and Kurenai so they can have a talk with him about taking your training seriously. It won't do if you're stuck as a genin for the next several years while the rest of us get promoted. Ino smiled, planting a kiss on Irie's cheek. Thank you, Irie-chan. I promise to work hard so that I can get promoted during the next exam. While Irie and Ino were having their own interaction, Minato and Sakura were plotting from deep within their safe house. So Mina-kun, when will we strike? Sakura asked. She traded in the clan clothes of the Haruno family for a skin-tight black bodysuit. Minato had given her a seal that allowed for accelerated growth, which meant that she was now 5 feet 6 inches, with her bust also growing to an astounding DD. My spies have informed me that Orochimaru will be invading during the finals in an effort to capture Sasuke since he didn't get the chance to mark him during the second exam. When he does, we will also attack. We'll help him, the third Hokage, and I'll rise up as the returning Hokage to pull the village back from the brink. I'll bring my brat in under the guise of wanting to reconnect with my son. I'll slap a slave seal on him and get him to hand over Irie to you. We'll give Sasuke to Orochimaru as compensation, but he'll have a seal on him that will him and destroy his eyes once Orochimaru jumps bodies. I spy with my little eye, something that is green. Naruto shouted. Could it be the leaves? Koga asked. How did you know? Naruto asked as though his father answered the hardest question in the world. We're traveling at incredible speeds through a forest, where practically everything we see is green because of the speed we're going. If we were to slow down though, we may be able to get a serious game going. Koga explained. Naruto sighed and muttered, so, anything else we can do? Ayumi suddenly appeared beside Koga and said, "Hurry up, you two. You're slowing us down." Both boys nodded and sped up slightly so that they were only a few feet behind Ayumi. Koga decided to start something up. "So, Ayumi, what are you going to talk to Suna about?" "Nothing that concerns you," was her answer. Koga's eyebrow twitched violently. "My god, she is one evil woman. How long will we be there for?" Naruto asked. "Probably for a week at most." Ayumi responded. "You might meet a few new kids there, so be happy." Assured him, throwing a quick smile at him. "Well, at least she doesn't see Naruto as me." Koga mentally thought happily. "Hey Naruto, let's play I Spy again, I'm getting bored." "Okay dad." Naruto shouted happily. "No talking. I just want peace and quiet." Ayumi shouted. Both the boys sighed again, and decided to use their mental link. "So Koga, I spy with my little eye, something that is." Naruto paused for a little bit before saying, "green." "This is going to be a long day," Koga whined to himself. After the three had traveled a good distance from Konoha, they decided to set up camp for the night. Ayumi grabbed the sleeping bag on her back and began to set it up while Koga and Naruto began to cook some of the ramen that Naruto bought. "I'm starving," Naruto muttered as he tried to light the fire. "Move aside Naruto," Koga said. He quickly made a hand sign, and a flame came to life in his hand. He quickly lit the fire to both Naruto and his delight. "Do you guys have enough for me?" Ayumi asked as she moved over to the fire. "Yeah, Naruto usually brings well over the normal amount of ramen any man would bring," Koga explained to her. "Yeah," Naruto exclaimed, "I think I have enough for the return trip also." "I see," Ayumi muttered. The three of them sat together and began to eat their ramen together. It was really quiet until Naruto began some conversation. He looked over to Ayumi and asked, "So, are me and my dad really going to have to protect you from someone in Suna?" "Probably not." She looked at his confused expression and elaborated saying, "You were to come because a few kids found out your secret, so while you are here, the Anbu will probably use some genjutsu on them to make them forget about it." Naruto noticeably twitched when she said, "Your secret," and could feel his anger at the village rising within him. Koga noticed them and mentally told him, "Calm down Naruto." "How dad? I just realized that the village hated me for something that was completely out of my control. They nearly me because of it." Naruto would have continued ranting but his father cut him off. "I know Naruto, I was with you the whole time, that was partly a lie." Koga had learned Naruto's past by looking at his memories of the past. None of them were very pleasant however. "Hey dad, thank you for adopting me," Naruto muttered. "Why do you say that now?" Koga asked. "Because, even if you're the evil demon fox that attacked so many years ago, you're different now. You allowed me to have friends, and you even saved some people's lives. For all of that, I thank you," Naruto said. Tears threatened to well up in his eyes. "Naruto, it is the duty of a father to his son, nothing more," Koga said with a hint of a smile. Ayumi noticed their expressions changing as if they were having a conversation, and when Naruto looked like he was going to cry she finally asked, "What the hell are you guys doing?" "What?" Koga looked over to Ayumi before realizing that she could not hear their mental conversation. "Well, Naruto and I have a bond where we can communicate within our minds, so we were just chatting, we didn't want to disturb you or anything," he quickly explained. "Well, I'd rather you talk out loud. I find it more disturbing that you guys keep changing expression without me figuring out what is going on, than when you chat out loud, so I know why you have those expressions," she explained. Koga sighed and dismissed the entire situation by saying, "Whatever." After the trio finished eating, Koga and Naruto unpacked their sleeping bags and the three slept for the night. Nothing out of the ordinary happened. The next day, the first of the three to wake up was Koga. When he realized his two traveling companions were asleep, and by judging the time by pointing out where the sun was in the sky, he figured that he had about an hour before the sunlight would wake them up. "I guess I should go back to sleep," he muttered. He went back into his sleeping bag but was not in the mood to sleep at all, so he decided to stay up and prepare breakfast for his companions. So, what do we have? He searched Naruto's bag and only found ramen, and he hadn't brought any food. I wonder if Ayumi has anything with her. He snuck over to her bag and opened it. He sighed when he found no weapons, but only little trinkets and various other things. I guess that means we're having ramen, he said with a sarcastic cheer. He began the fire like he had the previous day, and just sat there until he counted up the last few minutes his team would sleep. He cooked tea just in time for them to wake up by the sunlight hitting their face. What time is it? Ayumi muttered as she crawled out of her sleeping bag. Not sure, but we should be heading out soon. Koga answered. By the way, I cooked you some ramen, so eat up so we can leave right away. When Naruto heard the word ramen, he shot out of his sleeping bag and quickly began to eat it. Thank you, Dad, he said in between mouthfuls. Once they finished, Ayumi began to speak. Okay, we will repeat yesterday's behavior on our travels. Try not to lag behind. That was a short speech, Koga muttered. It was. She said. We need to hurry and I don't feel like explaining this to a thick-headed idiot like you. Koga felt a vein in his head pop out. A thick-headed idiot? He questioned. You heard right, she said as she turned away from him and huffed. You are going to be the death of me, Koga muttered. Okay, let's head out now. Keep up, Naruto. She said Naruto's name in a sweet voice which Koga noticed right away. She is really getting on my nerves. She just doesn't want to be mean to children. What is wrong with that? Arashi suddenly spoke up in his mind. That is not what I mean. I am glad she is kind to Naruto. It is how she acts to me that annoys the hell out of me, Koga explained to Arashi. Hey, sounds like she has something for you, Arashi explained. Her, Arashi, she hates me, isn't that clear? Koga asked. Arashi sighed and said, you'll find out eventually. After a long time of silence and travel, Naruto finally asked, are we almost there yet? Needless to say, their trip there was quickly turning chaotic. 2 more days later, in Suna. Are we almost there yet? Naruto asked for the millionth time. Yes, Ayumi shouted as she saw the village in the distance. She sped her pace up and quickly met up with the village patrol. What is your business in Suna? One of the two they met up with asked. We're here to negotiate about our current trade with you. Ayumi spoke with an official kind of sound in her voice. The 2 Suna guards chatted for a little bit before they finally allowed them in. Enjoy your stay in our village. We will thank you. Ayumi smiled and dragged both Naruto and Koga into the large village in front of them. She turned to them and said, okay, Koga, take this card and go to the hotel mentioned on it and get us 2 rooms, one for me and one for both of you. I will go see the cage about our negotiations. She quickly ran off afterwards. At least the card tells us where the place is, Koga muttered as he grabbed hold of Naruto's hand and they both began to walk to the hotel listed on the card. Naruto looked around excitedly, but got bored within a few seconds and complained saying, this place is almost exactly like our village, it is just a lot more sandy. Naruto complained. What were you expecting? Koga asked. Well, you know, like, Naruto stopped mid-sentence, what was I expecting? Koga laughed and said, exactly, you weren't expecting much, so let's just get to our hotel. Fine, Naruto muttered as he crossed his hands. One thing Naruto grew to like about this village apart from his was that no one gave him death glares. Everyone walked right past him, as though he was normal like them, which is not saying he isn't normal like them. Once they got to the hotel, Naruto noticed a playground nearby. Dad, can I go out and play there? He asked. Fine by me, just don't get hurt. Koga muttered as he went to the counter to buy their rooms. Naruto ran over to the playground and quickly began to meet all the children there. They were all very kind, and even offered him to play tag with them. That, of course, was an offer Naruto could not refuse. I got you, Naruto shouted as he tagged a girl around his age. He quickly ran away from her as she went to try to tag him back. Come back here, Naruto. She shouted at him. No thank you. He yelled back as he got quite a distance away. The game went on for quite a while until the children, too beat to continue, all sat on the ground and looked up to the sky. They began to pick out various clouds and say what they looked like. That looks like a fox, Naruto said as he pointed to the cloud right above him. Yeah, it does, the children around him agreed. Naruto looked over to the swings and saw a lone child on them. The child had red hair and a cloak all around him, covering him completely. The one thing Naruto noticed the most though, was what was written on the left part of his forehead, love. Who is that? Naruto asked as he pointed to the boy. That kid, he is Gaara, do not go by him. The child simply stated. Why should we all stay away from him? Naruto asked, now more interested. The children all exchanged glances and the boy continued to speak saying, he is a monster. He can control sand to crush people and that kind of stuff. Really? Naruto asked, now even more interested. Yeah, so don't go near him. The boy warned. I am going to see if he wants to play with us. Naruto finally stated as he got up. No, don't. One of the children said, almost begging. Yeah, he is a monster. If you ask him to play with us, we won't play with you anymore. Another child chirped. The others agreed with him shortly after. Shows how much of friends you really are, Naruto murmured as he walked over to Gaara. Surely enough, the children kept true to their words and ran off. Once Naruto finally reached Gaara, he held his hand out and said, Hi Gaara. I'm Naruto and I am wondering if you'd like to play with me. Go away, Gaara muttered as he looked to the ground. Come on, you're here all alone, can I at least swing next to you? Naruto asked again. I said, go away, Gaara warned. I guess I'll just swing right next to you. Then, Naruto muttered. Gaara looked up in surprise. Here was a child around his age who did not fear his S. I was you, now go away before I decide to hurt you. Gaara shouted. Sand suddenly shot up and spun around him. Why are you like this, Gaara? Naruto asked as he pulled back from the threatening child. Gaara began to remember painful memories. I am like this, I have to feel a purpose, no one loves me, no one wants to be my friend, it's all a lie. Gaara screamed and sand that was laying the ground suddenly went directly at Naruto, who in fear jumped away right in time. What is wrong with you? I just asked to be your friend and you try to me. Naruto shouted. Stop lying to me, you're just like the rest. My purpose is to, and that is all. Gaara shouted at Naruto. Naruto, who is your new friend? A figure behind Naruto asked. Naruto jumped and turned around to see Koga. Dad, this kid, something is wrong with him, Naruto tried to explain. I see Naruto, stay here, I sense something within this kid, something like you, Koga muttered as he walked towards the child. Stay away from me, Gaara shouted as the man advanced towards him. He lashed some sand at the man, but he simply dodged it and continued forward. Look, child, I am only trying to help you, Koga said when he was sure he was out of earshot of his son. When did you find out about Shukaku? Gaara's eyes widened when the man said his demon's name. Why do you want to know? He screamed. This was bringing up more painful memories for him each passing moment, and he wanted this to end quickly, but the man in front of him was too powerful. Kid Shukaku and I go way back. Koga's red eyes pierced into Gaara's and the once powerful intent within Gaara's mind became one of fear. Who are you? Gaara asked, his voice beginning to crack up in fear. I am the adopted father of a child just like you, Gaara. I can help you if you just allow me to. Koga explained. How can I trust you? Gaara murmured. He no longer had sand up and around him anymore, and he simply wanted to run from the man that was able to fear the demon within him. You need to learn to trust more. Koga muttered. Okay, I trust you, Gaara whispered. Naruto had come over when the sand seemed to die down and see what his father and Gaara were up to. Dad, did you find out the problem? Yes, it appears this child here is just like you, Naruto, meaning he has a demon within him as well. Though unlike you, it appears he had cracked under the treatment the village has been giving him, Koga explained. Gaara's eye widened when he had heard Naruto was like him, and he turned to him and asked, "Is it true? Are you really like me?" "Yeah," Naruto said as he put his hand behind his head and let off a small smile. Koga inspected the child in front of him for a little bit. Around his eyes it was completely black. It looks like the seal that keeps Shukaku inside of this kid isn't very well done, Koga thought. Gaara. Koga spoke up, "How was the demon sealed inside of you?" Gaara looked down and muttered, "When I was born, my mother was a sacrifice used in its sealing. I had never known my mother, and was told that she loved me very much, but one day, I learned that she cursed the village, and me wanting it all to die, and she wanted all her hatred to go to me, so I could fulfill her dream. I learned all of that 4 years ago." Koga nodded. That explains why he didn't seem so sane at first, he figured. Gaara, allow me to finish the seal for you. It will allow you to rest well, and control the demon within you, and the only thing you have to do is accept my son's friendship. Gaara looked up at the man in front of him. "This isn't some kind of trick, is it?" he asked. "No," Naruto shouted. "So will you be my friend?" Naruto held out his hand for Gaara to shake if he accepted. Gaara looked back and forth between the two people. He had a huge debate in his head. His small sane side was saying to do it, while the side corrupted by Shukaku was telling him not to. Finally he made his decision. "I will gladly be your friend, Naruto," Gaara announced as he took a hold of Naruto's hand and shook. "Awesome, Gaara," Naruto shouted as he hugged his newest friend. Gaara was never this close to anyone, so it felt quite strange. Koga split them up and said, "Naruto, allow me to fix his seal first." Koga muttered a few things under his breath as he did a few hand signs. Suddenly all of his fingers turned a bright yellow-like color. Without any at all, he rammed it into Gaara's stomach, making the child scream in pain in the process, and effectively knocking him out. "Dad, did you him?" Naruto shouted in fear. "No, I guess I forgot to warn him that it was really painful," Koga muttered as he held the unconscious child. Naruto thought for a moment before asking, "Doesn't sealing require a lot of strange symbols to be written on the ground?" "Naruto, you're forgetting that I am over 1,000 years old, I know so many different jutsus." Koga thought for a moment before saying, "For example, when I was the evil demon fox you learned about, I stole many scrolls from powerful ninjas, showing some very powerful jutsus." "I see," Naruto muttered. Suddenly a light bulb went off in his head. "Why don't you teach me how to do some of those moves?" Naruto shouted. "Ha! No way, Naruto. The jutsu I just did on your little friend here, if used by a normal human, would have a 90% chance of death." "I see," Naruto muttered. "Now, let's head up to your room so I can put this kid down on a bed." He motioned to the child still in his arms. "Okay, Dad, let's go," Naruto shouted once again. In the hotel room, he sighed. The sun beat down on him, and he felt good. The breeze was just right and he could finally feel at peace without any intent rising up within him. "Wait, why isn't Shukaku saying anything in my mind?" the red-haired child thought. He then realized something. "Crap. I'm dreaming." He focused on waking up, and shortly after he did, he woke up as sweat. His once peaceful dream was turned into a panicked one. When he looked around he realized that Shukaku did no damage. What the? Suddenly the day's events ran through his head, and he understood now. "Gaara, you're finally awake," Naruto shouted happily as he entered the room carrying some food. The room was small. It had 2 beds with a lamp in between, a bathroom, and a kitchen. "Why did your father do that to me? It hurt like hell," Gaara muttered as he sat up. "He fixed your seal, Shukaku won't enter your mind, and you can now sleep. Of course the price was to be my friend," Naruto reminded him. "I remember now," Gaara muttered. "So, what do you want to do today?" Naruto asked as he sat next to his friend. "Well, it is getting pretty late, so let's go eat some dinner," Gaara said. "Sure, Gaara." Do you want to eat here or do you know of some good places to eat? Naruto asked. Gaara thought for a moment before saying, I never really went anywhere. Wherever I went, people's fear of me was too great, so I was never served. I see, Naruto muttered. Did the villagers at your village fear you and call you a monster and demon? Gaara asked as he tried to strike up a conversation. They called me a demon and monster, but instead of fear they expressed towards me, they showed me hate. They always threw things at me, and tried to hurt me. Naruto looked away, not wanting to remember the painful memories. There was one time when I was nearly. Really? Gaara murmured. If it makes you feel any better, I have had assassination attempts done to me by my father, Gaara muttered. Naruto looked over in surprise. Why does your father want you dead? Same reason everyone wants me and you dead. He viewed me as a project that had gone wrong, and ordered people to me. The one that came to me was the one that was caring for me. I no longer care for his name, as the last thing he told me was the truth that everyone but me knew about me, Gaara explained. Naruto looked away. Man, our lives have been pretty rough. Who is your dad anyways? My father is the Cage. Gaara muttered. Wait, the Cage? He should be an honorable person. He should never attempt to murder his child. Naruto shouted. Gaara looked over to his new friend and said, he isn't honorable, and sadly, I can only hope for when his death comes. So, when did you realize that your dad was Kyuubi? Gaara asked, changing the subject. That is funny actually. Naruto said laughing, only 3 days ago. Naruto said, and you still love him? Gaara asked. Naruto looked up to the ceiling and said, yeah, even though he once was the evil demon fox, he is now a kind and loyal person of my village, and I am proud to be his son. Gaara nodded. I wish I could feel that feeling. Maybe someday Gaara, you can, Naruto muttered as he looked to his friend. Yeah, possibly, Gaara whispered. Shortly after that the two boys decided to go out and try a new place to eat. Gaara and Naruto both left a note for Koga saying that they'd be out for a little while, and afterwards they left the hotel. In a restaurant. I have never done this before, Gaara admitted as he looked through the menu. What have you never done before? Naruto asked. I mean that as in, what do we do? Yelled out for someone to come and we choose what we want, or will they come eventually? Do we have to click some hidden button or something? Gaara explained. Naruto laughed a little and explained saying, they'll come over asking us what we want to drink first, then after a little bit they'll come and ask us what we want for our main course. I see, Gaara muttered. You do have money for yourself, right Gaara? Naruto asked. Gaara searched his pockets and realized that he had no money. Naruto, I don't have any money. Okay. Naruto searched his pockets, he pulled out a large sum and said while smiling, I think this will cover for both of us. So after they got their drinks and food, they began to eat. They talked very little for they both tried something that was completely new to both of them. After a little bit though, they were beginning to get full. Okay Gaara, I don't think I can eat any more, Naruto muttered as he patted his stomach. Same here, Gaara muttered as he leaned against his chair. Here is your bill, their waitress said as she laid down their bill. Naruto instant set down the money, and she took it right away. Now that is over with, let's get going Gaara. Naruto muttered as he got up. Gaara followed suit, and soon both of them were walking along the road, no certain destination in their minds. Roads of Suna. Gaara and Naruto both were in a park. It was quiet, almost too quiet. They both were growing suspicious, and wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. That was after they felt the presence of a person creeping up behind them. Do you feel it Gaara? Naruto whispered. Yeah, someone is behind us. Gaara muttered.